Welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Life podcast. I am so excited for this episode because I feel like it's a long time coming. I'm joined by Max today, I think, one of the most amazing humans I know, and one of the humans with the most insane disciplines out there. And when you listen to his story, you will know what I'm talking about. And I'll get Max to introduce himself, and welcome to the show, Max.
Thank you, Deanna. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I know it's been a long time coming. Um, it's been a wild ride with you. I guess to introduce myself, out of the Boston area, I'm 27 years old. Um, Currently in basically a digital infrastructure, real estate acquisition space, and came to Deanna with a bunch of stuff going on in the burnout realm. Had a lot of things going on at the time that we'll get to, I think today, that she really helped me with. So I'm excited to dig in. I hope anything we share today with my story or Deanna's can help anyone that's going through something similar.
I think a lot of people will be able to resonate because of your discipline and your work ethic. You've collected a lot over time with
The good, the
everything.
bad, and the ugly, yes.
Yeah, and I think people will realize how smart you are and how resourceful you are when it comes to uh, researching, finding out what's going on, and tracking everything. And that, of course, is also a pro and a con, fortunately and
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your words, and yeah, it's definitely been one of my strengths. In discipline, it's gotten me to where I am today in a lot of ways, and right, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in some ways, it's been a double-edged sword. So I think discipline is one of those things that's glorified these days, but right, the dose makes the poison. So,
Yeah.
well, I guess one of the things that I learned most from you is kind of how to tactically use discipline, and discipline is kind of what got me here, and it's what'll get me out as well.
Do you mind sharing how you came about to develop this discipline? I would assume obviously it's innate as well, but there were a lot of environmental and external um, reinforcers for your
Sure.
discipline.
Yeah. Well, as everything does, begins in childhood. So I grew up in upstate New York in a very academic centric household. Um, my mom was super regimented in terms of school, right? You come home, you do your homework before you go to practice.
Mm.
I also played baseball, and so I had this high achieving, athletic, academic streak throughout my childhood. And I also have, well, I have two brothers. One of them is 2 years older, the other one's 9 years younger. Um, kind of, we call him the mistake as a joke. But the 2 year older brother was my competitive outlet. I mean, we
Mm.
competed over everything, whether it was legitimately like getting out of the grocery store, who could touch the car first, to, who could hit more home runs in the backyard, or um, right, school, anything. And so I guess to come up with the origin of my discipline, it would probably be, right, a strong family dynamic of, academic achievement, athletic achievement. I was pretty good at baseball from a young age, and I guess in the athletic sense, right? When you're good at something, you are rewarded to continue to be good at it. And
Mhm.
so I worked my hardest to continue to be good at it. And then my brother's side, through both, that really gave me like a partner to do it with. And so that's where I think most of my discipline comes from, is it's just trying to be the best at what I did.
Just obviously based on what I know of you, that discipline. Actually, let me just throw the question back to you. Where do you think that discipline came from? Do you think it came from a place of passion? I'm so passionate about baseball, about academics, or did it come from a place of fear of if I don't do this, this will happen?
Yeah. So if you ask me like 3 years ago,
Mm.
2 years ago, I would say, oh no, it's all passion. I love what I do, um, and I love being good at what I do. And through, my work with you, I think we uncovered a lot of fear that was driving some of the outlets of discipline that I was exercising. And um I guess through our work, it was really enlightening to see which parts of myself felt unsafe being
Mhm.
undisciplined in certain areas, whether that was working out, whether that's in a corporate environment, whether that's in my relationships. Um, and I would say those are the three major things that we focused on where, man, you tried to slow me down in a lot of these
Mhm.
areas, and I was not doing it for a while. And so back to your original question, which is, was it passion or was it fear? I think at times it's very passionate. I lost baseball, and when that happened, it was for a lot of athletes. That's a time of grief
Mhm.
when you lose the thing that you've been working towards, and that kind of shapes the fabric of your reality for a lot of your life. When you lose that, you try to fill it with something else. And for a lot of us, working in the office is not as
Mhm.
fulfilling as in the locker room with your buddies, on the
Mhm.
field, being outside. And so to try to replicate the discipline of something you were really passionate in
Yeah.
into something that you maybe are less passionate in the same way, is a recipe for, I think, a draining experience.
I think you touched on so many different points, and I actually had to write down some because don't forget, don't forget. Because there's so many different points in your story and in your life that were, and I think a lot of people will be able to resonate and people see themselves in your story. One thing I want you to kind of go into is that the the ending of your baseball career and then that period between the end and then the beginning of your corporate career. And then one thing I do want to touch on before, we get into that is even though you said I was telling you to slow down and you weren't, that wasn't working out too well, I just want to say that you were still so open to it. You are somebody, and I honestly, and when I say, you inspire me, I don't say that lightly to many people. And you know how I am with, inspirations and all that. Because even though there was a part of you that was so resistant to that concept, you were still open to it. You're like, you know what, I'll do whatever it takes, even though this still, this side is still pulling me. And then you're like, you know what, my eyes are so open. I'm not closing to the idea of whatever you want me to do. I'm willing to try anything. But also given you're pretty desperate.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
also desperate people can have tunnel vision, right? So, and it really says a lot about one is your character, two, just about how you deal with situations and essentially what has been getting you out of your state that you were in. So I really just want to acknowledge that because at the end of the day is not about, um the outcome is more about the process and how you shift and transform during that process of getting yourself
yeah,
there. Mhm.
absolutely. And I appreciate all those words. Truly, I would say I wouldn't have been so open if I didn't trust you, and like a lot, a ton.
Mhm.
I knew you had went through this. It was pretty cookie cutter. Hey, I went through the exact same thing or a very similar thing that you're experiencing right now. And at that point, I said, hands off, Deanna's taking the wheel, and I'm just gonna not blindly trust, but when you're in that state, which we'll get into after we discuss kind of what happened after baseball, when you're in that state, you're not making great decisions, and you're on a bunch of stress chemicals that are very dopamine seeking and not understanding of what it takes to like get out of that state. So anyways,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been possible, my openness, without the sincere trust I had in you and your program and your process. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Um, so rolling
Mhm.
back to your original question, which was, hey, kind of discuss what happened with baseball and that period. So um, I graduated undergrad in 2020, which was COVID year, and then all of the athletes in the NCAA were granted another year of eligibility because our spring season was cut short. I played baseball, if that wasn't clear. And so then I went down to UNC Chapel Hill and played a year there, and was supposed to be at least given a shot at the next level, at the professional level. And for whatever reason, injuries like this COVID thing cut the draft, and whatever reason, it wasn't supposed to happen. So I just kind of was left to move forward. And lucky for me, right, I had this academic background, and I went to school for finance, and I had always been made fun of for being one of the smarter kids on the team, who always worked the hardest in the classroom when everyone else was just trying to play ball.
Mm,
So I was lucky in that sense to have a passion outside of baseball to be able to continue to nurture. What happened after I got back from UNC in the summer was I took some time to just kind of rest and like relax, enjoy the summer, and like start looking for jobs. Um, and I had a pretty high bar for what job I wanted. I had some investment banking experience from an internship, and I didn't really like that. It was very soul sucking and just so much work and not a lot of play. But I still wanted to be in finance. So long story short, that whole process took like 8 months
mm,
to like find a new job. 10 months. Yeah, it was about 10 months. So in that 10 months, it was the period of my life where I was the most still. I had nothing to give any energy towards. I wasn't growing in any way. There was no job, there was no baseball, there was no and the other thing, I was very isolated. All of my friends were in Florida or Boston or doing their own things with their own jobs,
mm,
and I was just stuck at home. And my girlfriend at the time was at med school or PA school in Buffalo, so I was just alone with nothing to do and grieving a chapter of my life that had just come to a close without really another thing to like pick up and focus on. And so I fell into kind of a very depressive state, which affected me very deeply. I mean, I got through it, but I needed some coaching. It's kind of the first, I don't know if other people resonate with this, but the first like crisis you kind of go through in life is easily the worst
mm,
because you don't know what you're feeling. You don't know, at least for me as a very sensitive person, I feel very deeply. And so I just didn't know what I was feeling, right? Is it right to feel these things? Is it not right? What am I feeling? Um, and to looking back, there was definitely a jacked up nervous system in the mix.
mm,
But it was also just a perfect storm of um, needs not being met in a lot of different areas. And so basically to come full circle, to work out of that state, I decided to just go. Like action
yeah.
action precedes emotion, right? You've got to go make your emotions. You got to go make your positive emotions by doing. And um it worked. I mean, it worked because I became undepressed. I moved to Boston. I got a great job here. I reconnected with friends, but and so all of that was great. Um, and I learned a lot along the way of how to kind of work out a crisis.
Mhm,
But what I did in that moment was I set myself up for an existence of perpetual motion
Right.
where I basically had trained my body, hey, if we keep moving, we're safe. If we keep doing, we'll create positive emotion. Um, and so if you keep doing that and you don't actually rest, you end up in a different crisis
Yes.
where you deplete yourself, which is how I got to know Deanna. So that's kind of the post baseball era. After um, basically after all this happens, um, I go into a sales role where many people, if you worked a sales job or you know someone who works in a sales job,
Mhm.
you're always on the clock and you're always just grinding because you eat what you kill. And yeah, it was a perfect role to move into after this era where I was doing nothing and convinced myself that doing all the time would create this great experience. And so to move into that role, I did very well. Like I killed it. And from the start, I had a lot of, great mentors that helped me. It was definitely not just myself, but um, it was the conditioning of someone who has been very disciplined in a lot of areas in my life in previous times, coming in and being razor sharp in discipline, first one in, last one out, highest call volume, highest, made call and talked, um, most deals down the list. And that was awesome for a long time until it wasn't, because what ended up happening is I started to develop like this like physical um inability to rest, basically. This inability to like sit
Mhm.
and do nothing. And that was like a highly uh it was like momentum almost. Like once the train starts, it's very hard to stop it.
Mhm.
And so when you're on the cusp of this what we call burnout, it's one of the signs of it that I kind of, at least in my own head, understand it. When you're on the cusp of it, it's just very hard to stop it. And I just didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And so um, I kind of started to understand what was going on there. But when these small things happen, you don't really like make monumental changes until maybe something monumental happens.
Mhm.
And so what was really happening is I just was not listening to my body. And so my body yelled at me, and it yelled at me with a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes in April of 2025. So it's been about 14 months since I've been diagnosed. Um, that was a heart-wrenching process, pretty much. I would say most people, around 50% plus, are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes before 18.
Mm.
But a lot of them are diagnosed after. And so when I was diagnosed, you're just kind of in this state of shock. I knew nothing about the disease. I knew nothing about what lifestyle changes needed to happen. But I quickly learned. And
Yes.
where the train starts going off the rails is you've created a working environment. Not to mention, I was working out, 5, 6 days a week hard with intense cardio, with lifting, heavy resistance training. Um, I was giving my very all in all of my relationships, which is great. I love loving my people. And I was just grinding at work. Okay, you have all of that. you have a disciplined mindset where anything related, anything that is not basically perfect or at the top is failure.
Mhm.
And now you're thrown an autoimmune disease with probably one of the most lifestyle changes or the most day-to-day management intensive diseases you can have.
Mhm.
You threw that into the mix, and what did I do? I just threw it right on the plate, and just I just added it and said, "Oh, I'm good. I'll just figure this out,
Yeah.
continue with the same mindset, and we'll be all set." So that's what I did, or I thought I did. I read basically a textbook called The Diabetes Solution in about 2 weeks, and thought I learned everything I needed to know about diabetes. I was just never going to eat carbs again, and it was all set. And then the train started falling off the rails, and that's where I got to you, um, because I was in a state of disarray. I mean, my mind was going in 17 different directions. For people who have type 1 diabetes or know someone with type 1 diabetes, it's a very, once again, management intensive disease. You're always thinking about blood sugar, how much insulin you have on board,
Mhm.
because the alternative is basically for a lot of us, we're putting enough insulin on board every meal to kill ourselves,
Right.
which is a crazy reality. So if we were to dose and trip, fall, and hit our head and knock unconscious and not eat,
Yeah.
that's it. So the threat of death, which is deep, I know, but when you're first diagnosed, like that's what you're thinking about all day. The threat of death on a daily and intradaily,
Mhm.
um, really made me super uncomfortable in my own skin. It made me hyper aware of my body, the sensations I was feeling. Hey, is this what a low feels like? Is this what a high feels like? And for a perfectionist with this disciplined mindset, it was fuel on the fire. And so I needed help. Excuse me, I needed help. And that's when I read your book cover to cover. And that's when I said, let's do this thing. I'm open.
You're like a, you're like David Goggins. I was gonna say you're like the David Goggins of the sales world, but then you're David Goggins in every way, where
That's
you
such
were
an
rather.
insult. That's such an
No,
insult from
no.
you.
No, I said you were,
Oh,
not
were. Okay,
anymore.
okay.
Yes,
We're good.
yes.
We're good.
Well, that didn't take much. Uh, but you know
No,
what I
I
mean.
I did.
Mhm.
I loved Goggins, and sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, but
No, not at all.
one of the books that got me out of this very grief-filled state after baseball was Can't Hurt Me, which
Mhm.
is David Goggins basically tell all on his life and how he was fat and um he was working like a basically a cockroach killing job, and sat down and on the couch and was watching this Marines commercial. I think he was in the Marines. Maybe it was, no, it was his Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
And it's just his whole story on how he just he was so depressed and then he became so disciplined, and now he's a legitimate machine. I don't know how he does it,
Yeah.
because I did it for about 4 years, and not what he was doing. But anyways, I idolized him because his methodology got me out of a certain space that I needed to get out of. But then I took it to heart, as I usually do. I'm a very all or nothing type person, which
Mhm.
I'm trying to work on. Um, and I applied it to pretty much everything. So yes, I was very David Goggins esque,
Mhm.
um, and trying to once again just be more tactical with when I deploy that type of energy.
I mean, I think everything, and we've talked about this, of course, is that everything is a learning process. Is we people like you and myself included, is we swing so far to one side of the pendulum or the spectrum, and we are almost forced to experience the other side of the spectrum. And then we have to try to find our way to the middle. We're somewhere close to the middle because we've now realized that this side doesn't work and the other side doesn't work. Then what works? It has to be something in the middle. And a lot of the times that requires such a painful process or processes that we have to go through. And for you, you've gone through multiple now.
Yep.
And in terms of the and I just wanna go into, details a little bit because and I think, different people will resonate different points of your story. For example, ending your athletic career and feeling that depressive state, and then finding something that brings you a sense of purpose, and then taking that too far, and then realizing, "Oh crap, I have to slow down," and then getting a diagnosis that is devastating to many, many people, and then finding your way to a point where your type 1 is very well managed at this point for you because you've done so much for yourself. You've, sought out resources, people, um, different methods as well. So I would love to go back to, your career, ending that athletic career and essentially trying to find yourself in a place where my identity has been lost. That athletic person that I used to be, I was going to be a professional baseball player and now I'm no longer. So how was that transition for you? And then the process of essentially finding purpose again.
I mean, it was super painful. You're just like losing a part of you. I would equate it to almost like a breakup where you're
Mhm.
just like you're losing a piece of you, a piece of your identity that like you still like I could go play baseball, but like it's over. Like
Right.
I could have gone and played more and right, but it's over. Like what I wanted to do is over. Um and the game told me that I was, I had some injuries and it just felt like it was over, but it doesn't mean it didn't hurt.
Right.
And so that process of losing a part of you, um, the thing I didn't understand at the time is like how to move forward from that.
Mhm.
Um, one of my teachers at the time basically had told me like depression is like you're locked outside of the kingdom and you're like trying to go knock back in,
Right.
but like you have to go find your next kingdom. Like you have to go and find the next thing.
Right.
And there are many ways to approach finding that next thing, but I was stuck knocking back on the door, trying to get back to my old self when I needed to transcend. I needed to move forward and do and reach my next chapter, basically.
Mhm.
And so it took me a while of just sitting there to be like, oh, this sucks. Like doing nothing sucks.
Yeah.
Um, but doing nothing while grieving something sucks even more with no friends there. I was in a pretty dysfunctional household at the time. Um, and it was just not a great time. And so when when you lose a part of you, um, I I I basically frantically tried to figure out what I was experiencing and how to not experience the pain.
Right.
Um, and so I was reading all these books, right? Kaizen, finding your purpose. Um, listening to a lot of podcasts like Tim Ferriss and Huberman and,
Mhm.
trying to optimize health. And I found my way through it. Um, but I realized that yes, your purpose is a part of what creates like a healthy mindset. But it is not like everything. It is a foundational piece,
Mhm.
of what creates like a healthy individual. But it is not like everything. And in fact, if you make it everything, you neglect other fundamental pieces, and there are casualties associated with doing that. It's the pendulum swinging too far one way or the other. And so we're
Absolutely.
still in this process of,
Mm.
okay, what is the middle? What does it look like, between doing nothing and doing everything and, having some fun basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope that answers kind of your question from losing something to having a purpose again.
Yeah, definitely. I love that analogy you used with the pendulum, and also as you were saying that, what came to mind was a purpose is like knowing a destination. I want to go to this place. But the more important things is who do I want to go there with? So it's almost like let's say we're going on a road trip to this destination. Destination is a purpose, but then we also need to consider what car are we driving? Are we taking a car? And if is the car gonna take us there? Is it, is the engine good enough to take us there? And also who do I want to go there with? What do I need to bring with me? Whereas most people kind of focus more on the purpose part and the road and the route that takes them there rather than what vehicle will take us there.
Yeah. And the other thing you talk about a lot is how fast you're going. I mean, I just flat out I took off running in a sprint,
Mhm.
and that didn't last very long. And and so I think we can talk a little bit about this concept of urgency, um, which is a hard thing to untrain. Um,
Yeah.
but in that time, there was just a sense of urgency. Like I had to like do everything all at once. Especially with the diabetes now, when once again, if anyone is close to the disease, especially when you first get diagnosed, like you don't know what you're feeling, or like your first low is like, what is this? This is
Yeah.
crazy. Um, and and so the urgency to want to fix everything quickly, whether that's to get rid of the pain, or to fix a low or fix a high, or well, you probably should fix a low pretty quickly, but fixing a high,
Yeah.
or fixing the fact that you don't have a purpose, that or fixing, or not fixing, but right in a sales setting, just rolling through calls without taking breaks, or getting to the X amount of deals before a certain amount of time. That urgency is really, really taxing. Um, you can have urgency in select situations where you deem it to be necessary and true to your North Star or your destination and where you're going. Um, but one of the things I learned most from you is, right after that urgency, you have to prioritize recovery. You have to prioritize rest,
Mhm.
realignment. Um, you can't just keep sprinting and think you're going to get to the destination faster, because your engine is going to blow, and
Yeah.
you're going to end up sitting. It's like the tortoise and the hare. You're going to end up sitting there while the person who actually maybe took the time to recover and rest is just running right by you as you're just in crisis on calls with Deanna Rose.
You know what I realized, as you were saying that is when we first started working together in the concept this concept shocked you was you're like, "So I don't have a limited energy?"
I knew we were going to talk about this. I knew
No,
we were going to
I
talk about
wasn't
it.
going to, but then when you were saying that, I was like, "Yes, once upon a time you believed that he is, 1, likely invincible, 2, has unlimited energy."
The law of infinite energy, which sounds like a real law, is in fact not true. You do not have infinite energy. If there's anyone out there that thinks you do, um, you probably do in some ways, but I definitely thought you could just keep going like an Energizer bunny. But basically, I thought that because I was so disconnected from my body
Mhm.
that I wasn't feeling anything. I was basically numb to any signals telling me I'm tired or that I needed to break, or because rest and doing nothing felt like a threat.
And
And
it's clear, yeah.
so yes, the law of infinite energy is not a thing. But I did think it was at some time.
And it's, there's certain things we realize in life, and it's painful in the beginning when you first realize it, just I would assume your diagnosis, but as you work through it, you realize, "Okay, this is manageable, and we can work with this new reality." But it kinda this leads to the point where I wanna talk about is, and you've said this to me multiple times over the course of, the time that we work together, is you're very uh, eh, avoidant oriented. So, and one thing you mentioned was after your baseball career ended, it was about how do I run away from this pain? And now, and I hope you're still practicing this, but during the time we were working together, I continue to talk about tapping into the pain and connecting to the pain. How do you find that connecting to the pain and not running away from the pain has worked out for you versus running away from the pain and avoiding the pain and almost, painting it in a way that's this monster in the closet?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the biggest paradigm shifts I think during our work is if you continue to run from the pain will get greater. And until you are able to look at the pain, feel the pain, and process it, it's not going to flow through you and dissipate. And it took me a while to get that, like to feel that, like, okay, this works, and like this is the way it's supposed to work, because wasn't doing it right, or like not doing it right. I just didn't have the understanding of how to
Mhm.
do it,
Yeah.
how to process pain, because I had just run away from it for my whole life, what seemed like my whole life. And so reconnecting with basically emotional pain, even like physical pain,
Mhm.
when you're going through deep, deep burnout, it's like some of the lowest lows in terms of like fatigue, like um, a deep, just like dull force
Yeah.
where you also have other physical symptoms. That's part of like the nervous system dysregulation is chronic symptoms that come up. I was dealing with so many headaches. Um, my right hand would just go cold.
Mhm.
Um, I just had so many other symptoms. And if you feel the symptom and become scared about the symptom, um, you then train your brain that every time the symptom comes up, you create a fear response. And
Mhm.
so you quickly train your brain that everything that your body feels is a threat.
Yes.
So on top of already having a dysregulated nervous system, you continuously dysregulate it if you do not feel the pain and are okay with it.
Yeah.
So that happened at some point, and then I had to like basically through our work look at the symptoms, not react to them. Basically, at first it's like you're white knuckling, like, nope, it's everything's chill, we're all set. And in reality, you are in pain, but for the first time, you're just feeling the pain and not judging it. And that's a powerful concept. One that I continue to practice for sure to this day. If I do feel pain, I give it the time, I give it the presence, and then, but I don't just dwell. I try not to just like stay in the pain.
Mhm.
Like I will visit the pain. But one of the things I did like after baseball, right on the other side of the pendulum, was I just stayed in the pain.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do that. At least I don't need to do that. I just want to visit it, let it know that I'm there and that I feel it, I sense it, I'm okay with it. It's okay to be in pain. Um, and then continue to move forward in a gentle way. Now, the other thing I wanted to say about that, um, I just forgot, but it will come back to
All good.
me.
As you were saying that, everything you were saying, you're so analytical and you're so systematic with everything. And I think that's why you're so brilliant, you're so smart, and which also sometimes gets you into trouble is, and I hope people are catching on of this, of how Max's brain functions, is he's so quick and he's so witty, and he will pick up something and he will apply it to himself, and then he automatically will come up with all a list of things in his brain. And when I picture your brain, I see that, like the what is it? The futuristic AI with, like, data on one side, data on the other, and that's kind of
Yeah,
almost how your brain functions.
absolutely, and that is so it's like Iron Man, right? If you look at
Yeah.
like Robert
Oh,
Downey
yes, it's
Jr.'s
Iron Man.
like
Yes,
yeah,
it's
so like honestly with the diabetes, like right, it is such a huge part of like it's just such a huge part of the day
Mhm,
that it just adds so much stimulus to your day because you could always be checking your blood sugar at any time. And there's no shortage of data on your phone to be able to dive into, to focus on trends, understand what foods do certain things. I mean, there's like 40 some odd factors that affect blood sugar. And so
mhm,
you basically gave an unsolvable problem to a perfectionist who takes pride in and at one point defines self worth by solving problems. And so I think um, this diagnosis really came up, I guess, on a spiritual level as a lesson to work through, to understand not all problems are solvable, and sometimes you just need to sit with pain. Um, because yeah, as much as I do think we are going to figure out type 1 diabetes functional cure at some point, totally going to happen in my lifetime, then right, if you just live in that reality and only that reality and be and ignore the present, it's not a great state to be in. You actually have to like you have to feel the pain, and then right, what I started talking about was limit the overstimulation for the nervous system. And so I guess, Sienna, since we've been working together, I mean, I've taken huge strides in cutting down my phone usage. Not like I feel like a lot of people actually um, resonate with this. Like only picking up your phone when you want to do something inside of it,
mhm,
and then only doing that thing inside of it, and then closing your phone. I mean, that is like the hardest thing to do in the world that I'm trying to work through right now. But it's been so impactful for me to limit stimulus because I basically have to pay back so much energy debt
mhm.
that I need to do these things in order to continue living my life in a slow and gentle way while also continuing to do the things that I love, talking to people that I love, continuing to foster my, my purpose
Mhm.
and continuing to physically move.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that you just mentioned is, connecting with people, that human connection piece. You mentioned that when you were going through your depressive period, there was lack of human connection. And then during the time that we were working together, given you had no energy to have human connection, but also during the time when you were working a lot during those 3 years, yes, you were giving a lot to people, but also I feel like you were working a lot as well. And there was very little, I think the type of human connections you actually need that you've realized as of late too. Um, what do you think? I guess what kind of advice would you give people if they're either going through a depressive period, where they're going through burnout, or they're going through a period where, you know, all or nothing. I need to work. I need to focus solely on work. because the target audience is, founders and people who are scaling, people who are in deep in work and in business.
Yeah.
How has human connection essentially contributed to your work, to the quality of your work, and how that changes your happiness and your relationship qualities?
Yeah, so that's a loaded question, but definitely a good one because human connection, for me specifically as an extrovert, is like a need. Like I just flat out need to like experience people, loving, just any human interaction in a social setting. I just love people, talking to people, chopping it up, talking about life, talking about what's going good, what's going bad.
Mhm,
And so, during the post baseball era, I didn't really have a lot of that. And when I reintegrated that, I became such a happier person. And then flowing into like the corporate setting, right? There are different types of social interactions, right? There are like you are just chatting and like enjoying and maybe, going to get a drink with someone or you're watching football with the guys or whatever.
mhm.
And then there's like you're at work and you're like giving feedback to someone. And those two like realms of social interaction are like so different for energy. Um, at least for me. One of them is very energy giving, and one of them can be very energy depleting, depending on who I'm talking to and what I'm talking to them about.
Mhm,
But yes, not all social interaction is created equal. So for me, I have to find the right people that I want to interact with, doing the right things that create energy for me. But that's such a trial and error process. It's something that I've had to work through to understand, right? You can't just give all of your energy to everyone because then you're left with none.
mhm.
You also have to receive energy from people sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and you also have to learn when to just not give as much energy to some people or some things. Um, because if you just keep giving and giving and giving, then you're going to deplete yourself. So human connection, in my opinion, is a human need. For me as an extrovert, it's a very big need. For a lot of founders, I assume, right, you're go getters, you're energetic people, and the with a high proclivity to just bury yourself in the business and not prioritize human needs that if actually understood the value of, right, this human connection outside of maybe a working environment
Mhm.
could actually positively benefit your work success and performance.
Absolutely. I I didn't share this with you before we jumped on the call, but as you were saying that, I just realized that as of late, and I'm a pretty big introvert, extrovert. I can be very extroverted, but I also need my own time alone in a dark cave. Uh, but as of late, I've realized that the how what I thought about, my needs are in terms of human connection in the past hasn't been because of me not wanting to be around people, and I think some people might find this helpful, especially entrepreneurs who are introverts. Because before I was always saying, "I'm a loner, I don't like being around people." But when I have certain conversations, with you, for example, is I get energy from our conversations because it brings me to life. It brings me hope for humanity, first of all. And also just these concepts that are so important because I'm not somebody who likes small talk. And as of late, I realized that human connection is so important to me because of a couple things. One is now I'm way more connected to myself and I'm not afraid to look at certain parts of myself. And that authenticity I appreciate in myself. So that self connection then leads to me finding more people who I would like to connect with rather than just randoms that I can only have small talks with. For example, the more of the spiritual conversations you and I have, those are the things that I can't just go out on the street and tap a random person's shoulder and be like, "Hey, do you wanna talk about God or do you wanna talk about reincarnation?" They're gonna think I'm crazy. So but those are the conversations that light me up, or burnout, or nervous system, or business performance. So and then I realized that you have to find your people, but in order for you to find your people, you have to be able to connect to yourself, the authentic part, the part that maybe sometimes we're afraid to look at, the shadow sides, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, just to add to, what you were saying.
absolutely. And one of the things you had said in the previous question was, what would you basically tell someone who's in a similar, burnout
Mm,
position or in that depressive era, and on track with the social connection thing, right? In my experience, and I think it's true for many others, grief and pain needs a witness sometimes, a lot of the time.
yeah,
And to be vulnerable with others has helped me immensely. I've never had a I'm a very open book. I mean, our first call, it was probably just a garbage dump of baggage, which you're well equipped to handle. So, but anyways, grief does need a witness, and that's what you had helped me basically be during that time in my life. I've had different coaches. One of my three of my best friends actually started a coaching platform called Solstice Growth. Definitely go check them out on their website,
mhm,
solsticegrowth.com, and on their Instagram. And basically, these three individuals, beautiful souls. It started with them just going on retreats, basically just them three, talking about life, talking about their goals, talking about what was going well, what was not going well, and helping themselves through each other's, ups and downs, through life experience.
yeah,
And I joined them after, and it's been one of the most impactful experiences of my life to go on those retreats and to understand that, oh my God, I feel so much better just talking about what I'm going through in the presence. I think, especially for men
yeah,
who don't do this a lot, in the presence of other men, to just release. So definitely go check those guys out. They also have a coaching program specializing. I think their sweet spot is young men who are just looking for more in life. It's a great educational, um, basically knowledge base for, whether you're looking to learn more about health, finance, nervous system stuff, and then to also take a deep dive inside to align your purpose and your vision with what you're actually doing in life. So
mhm.
definitely go check those guys out. And a great example of pain and grief just needing a witness.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love and I've said this to you before too with Solstice, is that they do things that what men used to do, but men don't do anymore, is, the carrying logs up the mountain,
Mm.
or doing things that are more how men connect with each other. And for guys who are listening, they don't just sit by a fire and talk to each other. They actually do things that connect men to men. Whereas women, we like to sit down together and just talk. Whereas men like doing things. So so don't be afraid to reach out and check them out. It's not just chit chatting and gossiping like girls do.
No, it's a pretty exhaustive day emotionally,
Yeah,
physically. There's, physical challenges. There's a breath work
absolutely.
component. There's a meditative component. There's a goal shop, a goal workshop. It changes every season, as you could probably guess. All the retreats are on the solstice, so four of them a year. Um, but yeah, great people, great initiative, and go check them out.
Awesome. Thank you for mentioning. I was actually going to ask you to talk a little bit about solstice later, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Of course, of course.
I do have one question before, actually, two questions before we wrap up. Is that as you're coming to more in touch with your pain and in touch with yourself, essentially, and not ignoring certain signals and that intuitive side of yourself, how has it transformed your relationships and your business? Because especially for men or for women as well, who are so have gotten so good at suppressing that side of themselves. They're afraid to essentially allowing that vulnerability to come out, and because at the end of the day, we're all seeking just safety and certainty. Certainty is safe, and safety allows us to survive. So I know it's been such a painful and scary process, and I feel like, you're on the side where I see the benefits of all of this. And how has that transformed your relationships and your work?
Yeah, so I think as you become more connected to yourself and more compassionate with yourself, you become more compassionate and connected to others. And so I'll talk about just my um like my team members, the people that I manage in my role, right? Before this process, it's just very like sales management can just be very like performance based.
Mhm.
And right, it's cut and dry. You didn't hit it or you hit it, and if you're not working hard, it's a problem. And so because that's how I talk to myself.
Yeah.
That's before I basically learned a lot of the things that you had taught me. And so having gone through this process and become more compassionate with myself, I can look to others going through a hard time and just be super empathetic in a lot of scenarios, while also I call it a hug and a push, right? So sometimes like you definitely need a hug, like a not a physical hug. Sometimes it's a physical hug, but I'm probably not going to be hugging my coworkers. Um, I so here's what I would say. I seek more like understanding now. I seek to understand more than to reprimand. So like, hey, why is this not getting done? Oh, you're going through something? All right, totally get it. I've been there, right? How can we work through this? How can we basically be symbiotic with where your current state is?
Mhm.
And then also kind of like helping them, giving them the tools to not end up where I ended up, which is a state of chronic stress and burnout to where I just didn't know how to help myself. And so weaving those tools, take breaks, breath work, um, uh,
Yoga nidra.
batch work. Yeah. Yoga needs, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All that beautiful stuff. Get outside, go on a walk.
Mhm.
All those things I weave into my training now with them. So that basically they right what kind of manager or trainer would I be if I didn't pass down the lessons that I've learned and the traps to avoid. So yeah, I would say it just makes you a much more compassionate and understanding manager.
Amazing. I love that I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that you pass on your knowledge, and just because you're such a giving and kind-hearted and big-hearted person. So I'm glad to hear that you're implementing all of those things in them as they kind of work through their roles as well.
Definitely
Um,
not all perfect, but it's a work in progress, and at least that's the intention, and
Absolutely.
1% better every day.
Yeah, exactly. My last question, what are your 3 non-negotiables for your own happiness and to support your own happiness in order for you to be able to perform at work and also be able to show up for yourself and also your loved ones?
So we've hit on pretty much all three of these
Yeah.
during our discussion, but first and foremost is good people. I I need people that stimulate me in a positive way. I need people that are rowing in my direction.
Mm,
I need people that are genuinely happy for me when good things happen to me. There's those people that like will pretend to be happy for you when good things happen to you, or just flat out not be happy when good
mhm.
things happen to you.
Yes.
And so being able to share positive news with people that love me um, or to share negative things that are happening without judgment from them
Mhm,
is a non-negotiable for me. I'm super blessed to have a great support system in my fiance, my parents, my friends, the guys that started Solstice, along with my old teammates. They really make going through good and bad times as good as it can get. So number one is good people. Number two, would not have said this a while back, but rest and recovery. I have grown and changed so much from the law of infinite energy. Um, I realize now, like, I flat out just need like more sleep than most people.
Mhm,
Um, I'm just a sensitive person, and so I just take in a lot throughout the day,
mhm,
and so I need to rest and recover more than maybe someone who's less sensitive. And so different ways to rest and recover, I'm playing with and I'm currently doing. But I just didn't have the skill set before to like know how to approach that or even to feel safe in doing that.
mhm,
So rest and recovery. And then number three is get outside and get in the sun. And I know, so I grew up in Rochester, New York, which is, I believe it's like under Seattle as like the least sunny places to live in the United States. So, just brutal winters. Oh, that was the other thing. After baseball, I was in that hellhole of clouds every day. Sucked, super
Yeah.
sucked. But even through my work with you, like, you're like, dude, get outside, like breathe fresh air,
Mhm.
get in the sun. And that helps so much just in nature, bird song, um, touch grass, hug a tree, connect to the
Yeah.
earth. I do yoga nidra laying on the ground a lot.
Yeah.
People probably think I'm like dead on the ground, but in the park, I'll just do it because it feels good to me. I feel connected. It takes me out of this tornado of that life can be when you're just constantly doing, to just sit there and rest in solitude. And so, getting outside certainly connects me to the universe and to just nature at large.
So you've basically just become a hippie at this point.
I am a hippie, yeah, tree hugger. Yes, that's me, a
Yeah.
resting hippie without the drugs.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people kinda, eventually and you hear all these stories, and I've worked with so many clients that they eventually get to a point of success and they realize, what is there to life without nature, without the sun on my face, without the fresh air? There is and you realize that, and that's totally okay for us to go through that process of obtaining the materialistic goods and the status, the money, whatever that may be, and at the end, most people realize that it is the sun on the face. It is the grass, the all of that, that actually truly matters, that actually truly makes me feel connected. And I'm so glad you've come to realize that in your 20s and not in your 60s or 70s or 80s, you know?
Well, it was forced upon me. I had no choice but to face this reality. And yes, I too am grateful that it happened to me earlier rather than later, and
Mhm.
I was able to kind of have these realizations that can, yeah, yield some dividends in my life moving forward.
Yeah, amazing. Um, where can people find you if you're open to, and I can cut this part out if you don't feel comfortable. Can they reach out to you if they want diabetes, help or support? I don't know
Yeah.
if you thought about that part of your a side gig, anything that you kinda want to, develop into.
Um, yeah, absolutely. So people can reach out to me on Instagram, Max Troiani underscore. Last name is Troiani. She's probably gonna put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Yes,
So
I
that's
know.
okay. Probably spell my last name 13 times a day. But you can find me on Instagram. DM me if you're open to, I guess, chatting about anything that you felt resonated with you today.
Mhm.
Happy to talk through diabetes related stuff, um, kind of these life transition stuff. I'm happy to talk about my experiences with Deanna. If you're thinking about doing a coaching program with her, she's awesome. She's a special human.
Thank
I would highly recommend the investment in her and mostly in yourself, obviously. Um, and you can find me on LinkedIn if you want to chat, cell towers and data centers, if that's what you like to do. But yeah, I'll respond. I'm super open. I just want to help people that are kind of in a similar position to just eliminate any unnecessary suffering in this world.
Even sales tips as well. I know you're an
Even
amazing
sales tips,
salesman.
even
Yeah.
anti-burnout sales tips.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And also just when you and I had our very first call, it was our sales call, I remember. I was like, wow, this guy's like pulling a sales man move on me. So he's great. He's great at what he does. He's great at how he does it. He's just an amazing, kind-hearted human. And if anybody needs anything, and I have no doubt that you will always share your wisdom with anybody who needs the help. So thank you so much, Max, for joining me, for having this conversation, and for sharing everything that you've experienced so far in this life. And I can't wait to see what life has in store for you and how it will continue to unfold the big things. I really can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all your words and your support, and thank you for the platform. I love the pod, love what you're doing. I know you're going to continue to do awesome things, and I can't wait to see you grow as well. So we'll meet you at the destination.
Yes, thank you.